Man, the process of learning, like a journey of discovery, is such a fascinating thing. In 1987, the United States Army War College began to use the acronym VUCA to describe the world in a post-Cold War time. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it describes this interconnectedness and speed of technology that is causing the world to move faster and faster. Now, my personal journey jumps forward to 2003 in the summer. I was an inner city street cop working in a neighborhood with pretty high crime rate. And on this particular day, we get a 911 call, and it's at a house of a man named Marcelino. Now, Marcelino was a gentle and kind man who frequently opened his house to help the homeless, to help drug addicts. He'd provide food, and he just was such a man of kindness. As we pulled up and met Marcelino in front of his house, his head had been split open, and he was bleeding profusely. As my partner and I began to give him first aid, he tells us the story of being robbed and pistol whipped, and the suspect going into his own home, locking and barricading the doors. And so we started looking around, and we were able to find a window over the kitchen open. We opened the window, and a couple of larger cops threw me through the window into the kitchen. We didn't want to have to bust down Marcelino's door. But as I'm standing in this kitchen looking around, I had no idea what the acronym VUCA meant, but holy smokes, in that moment, I was living in a very VUCA world. Now, thankfully, a lot of training and great teamwork. The suspect was arrested. Marcelino got some stitches and got his house back without any further incident. But then I jumped forward in this journey almost 15 years later, and I'm no longer a police officer, but working in vocational ministry. And I find myself walking into a conference room to lead my very first staff meeting. And let me tell you what, I was way more scared there than I was standing in Marcelino's kitchen 15 years ago. And VUCA looked a whole new lens to me. Now, it's interesting because that moment has led me on this journey that's diving into the depths and understanding of leadership. Leadership has been fascinating to study because it's one of those things that there's not even a common agreed upon singular definition. Some of my favorite definitions come from author and leadership expert John Maxwell, who says leadership is influence. Western Michigan University professor and also author Peter Northouse says leadership is a process where an individual influences a group to achieve a collective goal. But my favorite leadership definition comes from executive coach Randall Stoltman, who said leadership is about making people and situations better. And as a leader, I know that's something that all of us desire. So leadership becomes interesting because as we look at this VUCA world, we see the complexity and uncertainty. And in 2023, Gallup performed a poll and found that in the United States of America, only 32% of employees would consider themselves engaged in their work. The same poll showed that 16% found themselves actively disengaged. Now, the science and the research shows that engagement or follower engagement is directly related to performance and adaptability, the things to accomplish overcoming the situations that a VUCA world produces. Now, I set out to ask this question and kind of to research okay, how do we develop leadership if leadership's connected to follower engagement and follower engagement is directly connected to the performance that allows us as leaders and organizations to overcome complexity and uncertainty? And as I began to dig into this, a couple of questions started to arise. The first is, okay, leadership development can be done in a whole number of ways, but I began to look at effectiveness and efficiency. And I've heard it said like this: effectiveness is doing the right things, and efficiency is doing things right. So as I dove into leadership research, one thing became clear. Even though a definition was not fully agreed upon, the research and the experts agree that leadership is not an innate trait. We're not born with it. It's a skill that we can learn and grow and develop in. And so this process, this research quest to go, how do we most effectively and efficiently develop leadership, has led me to standing here talking to you right now. Dr. Henry Cloud, in the book Integrity, wrote something that caught my attention in an incredible way. Dr. Cloud connected growth and development to the second law of thermodynamics. I know, you probably already were already thinking this. No, but when I read this, it was an amazing concept to me. So for my non-physicist friends, the second law of thermodynamics basically states that a closed system will decay or entropy into chaos before it ceases to exist. And let me describe it like this. Morbidly, if we starve you or me and deprive us of food, eventually our body will entropy to the point of chaos and breakdown and ultimately result in starvation. Now, a slightly less morbid example would be this video that you're watching will more than likely never wind up on MySpace. Now, MySpace was once a thriving social media network, but if you look at it in the recent history, the system has been closed off. There is no external energy being provided. And so MySpace is a visual example of entropy as the system heads towards eventually not existing. Now, on the opposite end, neg entropy is adding energy to a system, and this video will be on YouTube. And so we look at YouTube, and it's an open system with a lot of external energy being provided, and we see the growth and expansion of it on a daily basis. So, how does the second law of thermodynamics have anything to do with leadership development? And let me tell you what, this model that Dr. Cloud provided is fascinating. And so looking at it from the lens of the second law, what we see is that an open system, and this would be most directly correlated to a growth mindset, plus a defined growth structure, plus external energy will result in growth. This discovery led me to my thesis statement, which is this: can organizations enhance follower engagement through leadership development focused on growth mindset, growth structure, and external energy? Man, the research has been absolutely fascinating. Regarding the first piece of the thermodynamic training model, the open mindset or growth mindset, Henry Ford once said that whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Now, Henry Ford said this in a time where I don't think any academic rigor was done to confirm his statement, but Dr. Carol Dweck, in the years after, has done tons of amazing research on this aspect of growth mindset. And her research has shown an open mind or growth mindset, believing that we can grow and develop and learn new skills and learn new thinking, is resulting in increased performance in so many different domains. Now, growth structure, Dr. Cloud refers to as a template. And in the field of education, the term scaffolding gets used. And so what this is it's an individualized path of development that will allow the energy to transfer the maximum amount of growth. For leadership development, one way we can think of it is leadership requires many competencies. One competency would be team building. And so team building is made up of a bunch of different skills: casting vision, conflict management, effective communication. And so an individualized scaffolding or template or growth structure may look like specifically working on one of those skill sets to further enhance the competency. Growth mindset and growth structure make up 2/3 of the thermodynamic training model. The third is external energy. Now, Dr. Cloud said that most of the failed growth he had seen is because somebody had failed to connect with another who encouraged and challenged them to grow. We know that for a system to grow or become more, external energy must be provided, and coaching provides this. There's a wealth of research on the effectiveness of coaching to provide growth in skills and competencies and new behaviors. So tremendous research exists on each of the three components: the growth mindset, the defined growth structure, and external energy. However, there's an absence of research on combining the three factors. I'm going to challenge you for just a second to think about training that you have attended. I want you to imagine training that you went to that changed your behavior. Maybe it changed how you work, it changed how you think. It changed how you behaved after you left it. Think about that for just a moment. Now I want you to imagine training that you've gone to that resulted in no change. No change in how you think, no change in how you work, no change in how you act. And just for a moment, I want you to pause and think through this factor model of thermodynamic leadership, where is the missing piece that your behavior didn't change because of? While ample research exists on the three components individually, there is an absence of research of how the three components in the thermodynamic training model work together. From a theory standpoint, it makes sense that a growth mindset, a growth structure, and external energy will produce effective and efficient leadership development. However, the optimal amounts of each are far from yet determined. But I'm confident that as we continue to push into this research, that we, leaders, teams, and organizations will be better equipped to deal with the uncertainties of the VUCA world in which we operate. Thank you very much.